Hi, and welcome to another divorce chat. So I'm here with Angela. I'm Laurel Deet sorry, Angela. we we are Alinea Legal Coaching together, right? I'm the lawyer, and you are the everything else part of it.
I'm the right-hand girl.
Yeah, make sure that there's work to be done, and I do the work. So our divorce chats, we like to try and post them regularly. We've had a little hiatus because of just general sickness and things getting a little too busy for us to keep up. But we like to talk about in these divorce chats everything non-legal about divorce that might be able to help you see you through to a happy conclusion to your separation or divorce. So something that we've been talking about a little bit lately, we've been seeing happening with a lot of different matters, is a lot of legal issues that come up that are not really, they don't start as legal issues. They start as parenting problems, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So situations where maybe your kid or children are acting out, or you just don't know how to deal with a challenging behavior. And what ends up happening is maybe you don't deal with it in the best possible way, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you have a bad day. You do like, and usually these things build over time, right? It's not usually just like one instance. It's usually like a pattern of behavior, and you just not knowing how to handle it or deal with it. And then the problems keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger until you have a big crescendo and you have a really bad day. And then you have the other parent, on your back or in your face and saying, like, obviously you don't know how to parent, and I need to have all the parenting time, and how dare you? And like, it can get pretty extreme at times, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so why do we, if we could catch these things early, what do you think we should do, Angela? Like, you do some talking. You tell me.
well, first I'll say you and I both know all about parenting. You've got a toddler, I've got a couple teenagers, so we know about dealing with bad behavior.
So yeah, I guess
or
we don't
not,
know
not
all about parenting,
behavior, but we deal with parenting, not just through work.
yeah.
We're doing this in our free time as well.
But it's not, we don't necessarily have the answers about parenting.
That's right. No.
We know about the problems.
Yes, we know about the problems. We've dealt with some problems. We're always talking to each other about, oh goodness me, this is
let's try this. Yeah, let's try that. I'm like, oh my God. What that little monkey said to me today.
Yes, yeah. So I think definitely having somebody that you trust to chat with about these things helps relieve some of the day-to-day stress.
Yeah, so I get other parenting friends, or
yes,
people who can relate, right? That can help.
Yeah.
So on that line, there's lots of Facebook groups, especially for young kids. If you've got younger kids or toddlers at home, I can say there's, like, if you can find in your local community, if you can find a Facebook group of other parents who are, sharing ideas or stuff. I'm not much of a poster for social media, so that might not be something that I turn to. What would you try if you were
I definitely have been trying to find some friends and increase my friend group to include parents of other teenagers, or maybe parents who have children just a little bit older than mine, so that they've already gone through what I've gone through and have some good parenting tips and advice. And I am friends with some of my children's parents, so chatting with them, sort of keeping up to speed on what the kids are doing when they're not with me.
Yeah, you're staying on top of it that way. What I find, well, like, my toddler's not doing anything that I don't really know about. But what I've learned, which has been a bit of an education for me in the last 3 years, is that, parenting is definitely not the same as the way we were raised, right? There's so much more psychology in it now, and there's so much more understanding of young people and their development and where they're at. And like, I think maybe it's been a growth in that area, that science. And then therefore from the science, then we get into the practical, how do we deal with these certain things, right? And there's all different analyses, and it's like, so you can't just you take the way you were parented and say that's going to be good enough for my kids, because that actually could land you in some pretty deep shit. I'm not going to lie. And we're talking, child protection involvement, we're talking criminal involvement. If you kind of parent the way that we were parented in some cases, it was totally fine for us, but is just not acceptable by today's standards.
Yes, it's not okay. And on top of that, things are not the same as they were when we were children. There was no phones, little mini computers in our hands at all times. There was no social media, no, people able to access our children when they're safe at home. We didn't go through all of that when we were growing up. And so I don't think the way our parents parented us would help at all in today's day-to-day life.
So now me as a parent of a toddler, what I have found useful in dealing with some more difficult behaviors or challenges, right? So I'll do a little description of my challenges. Maybe you do your challenges. My challenges are obviously not necessarily, they could be screens related, but I'm mindful, screens are probably not best for a that's the science now, is you don't just shove your kid in front of a TV before they're the age of, even 2 is probably where they say you should be no screen time before then, but there's always room for movement there. But so we've been strict on the screen time. We're expanding as she gets older, but where we had the biggest challenges was picky eating, right? And there's a lot of bad behaviors that went along with that, or challenging behaviors, I should say, not bad behaviors. And so I was on social media and I found this lady that seemed, actually at first it came from a Facebook group where people were like, you should check out this page. You should check out this page. So then I went and checked out that page, and I'm not part of that Facebook group anymore, but I did go to this person's Instagram account. And then I followed it for a little while, and then I find out, oh, she's got a course about picky eating. So I went to her little webinar about that. And then I took the course, and it was incredibly valuable because it was it's a piece about diet and nutrition, but also there's a lot of psychology behind it, a lot of nutrition, psychology and parenting stuff behind it, how to manage certain challenging behaviors, and sort of descriptions about that. So I found that incredibly valuable. And where that has pushed me to is other parenting courses that are, marketed online. So they're online courses, and they've all got Facebook groups or Instagram accounts, and they always post regularly, here's the problem, how do you deal with it, right? And even just for free, following these people, you can learn a little bit about, what are the accepted and effective ways to parent now to deal with what we consider to be more challenging, because it's we've moved so far away from being able to they always say we have to use positive parenting, not the negative. There's it's not illegal to spank your children, but you can be sure that it's not going to be long before it is. Yes. I think they've drawn the line. They're saying, okay, we're letting you, responsibly, but it's not acceptable. I guess I should say it's not illegal, but it's not really acceptable, I think, to use physical discipline on your children anymore. And so it's a very controversial thing. And so that's why there's this push for the positive parenting and whatever that is. And it's how do you manage difficult behaviors then? So I have found that these courses online have been very effective, and they're affordable, they're more affordable, right? And so I think I'll say my little piece, and I'd like to hear more about the teenage thing, but just seeking out a parenting course, either online or a podcast or an Instagram account or a Facebook account, using social media to educate yourself about these things, just, in a family where we're not dealing with separation and divorce, has been beneficial and has benefited my daughter. And I will say, from what I can see from my clients, when you throw separation and divorce into the mix for a child, it's a huge transition in their life. It's a huge upending of what they, what they're used to and what they expect. It might be for the best, but there will be a period of transition, right? And they need to have, and there's a period of transition for the child, right? A huge transition for the child, but also a huge transition for the parents, each having to now suddenly be the everything to the child in their own independent household. So how do you manage when their behaviors that might be you know, because they're confused or whatever, going back and forth, or maybe you have different parenting values, but like, how do you manage behaviors so that you're not putting yourself in a situation where, you know, your ex is calling the cops, or your ex is calling MCFD, or your ex is, you know, applying to court to change the parenting time because your kids' grades aren't good enough for them, or whatever, you know?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyhow.
Yeah. So for me, I have some teenagers. I have a couple of them, and I am single parenting. So I don't have the benefit of the other parent in my children's lives to sort of tap out when things are getting difficult, or to lean on them when I'm sort of like struggling with what to do. So I think oftentimes, Laurel, you fall into that role as I'm chatting through my issues and trying to work out like, where am I going wrong? Or what am I doing wrong? Or what should I be doing? I'm
the backseat driver.
Yes, yeah.
I'm not even a passenger in the front. I'm in the backseat. Well, I just offer some perspective. That's all.
Yes, yeah, yeah, and I appreciate it because you know, sometimes you sort of get so engrossed in this stuff, and it's sort of like I tend to feel like, oh my gosh, I've done everything wrong and I'm ruining these children's lives. So I tend to get quite negative on myself. So I do appreciate you keeping me like sane and normal.
So that's the thing for Angela, is find someone who can help you like relieve some of that pressure, I guess.
Yes, yeah. And so I haven't tried any parenting courses yet, although you did recommend Allison Reese to me. And I think come New Year, I'm going to try and sign up. When I looked into her courses, it seemed like everything I needed in my life. But unfortunately, at the time, the course wasn't starting for a few months. And then everything sort of calmed down at home with the kids. Things were sort of back on track. Things got busy at work. So I overlooked signing up for that course. So I think come January, I'm going to make that a priority. I have made some, you know, I deal with a lot of screen time issues, and I think I've made some errors in the past. I used to really be a lot more strict about screen time. And then when the pandemic hit, and you know, I didn't actually realize how crazy it was going, you know, COVID was going to be. I just was a spring break. And so I just sort of like let the screen time be a free for all. And then things were kind of crazy, and school didn't go back to school. And, you know, there was all this talk about children sort of struggling to have connections with people. And at the time, my son was, you know, quite into video games. And so he was always on his like headset, and he was interacting and socializing through screens. And so I just, you know, thought, okay, well, you know, this isn't going to go on for too long. So this is a good thing for him. And so, you know, I made some mistakes there. And so we have sort of struggled to control screens since then, because it's sort of hard to explain to a headstrong teenager that, you know, just because before it was okay, now it's not so much. So we have had lots of conversations about balance, style balances, and in the end, what has really helped me is that I signed up for Shaw Internet, and so it comes with this Shaw Home where I can, you know, control the devices and when they get to be connected to Wi-Fi and whatnot. And so I've just put on a schedule, and you know, because I'm a single parent, I'm quite busy. And so without this schedule to manually do it, I get sidetracked. I'm doing something. I realize, oh, my limit of 2 hours, you know, the kids, I didn't go and say, oh, time to turn it off. And so they sort of quiet and kept on screen timing. So this, so this Shaw has helped me out quite a bit. Thank you, Shaw.
Well, you know, it's screen time, I'd say, is one of the major stressors that most parents, like, especially in the context that I'm seeing people, screens are such a hot button issue. You know, one parent will allow more than the other parent. One parent's quite restrictive, then the kid wants to be more with that parent and all this. And so it is very challenging to deal with that when you're also dealing with a separation and divorce, I think, because not both it's great when you're going through separation and divorce, so you can both be on the same page, and you can both speak amicably and like reach consensus about how you're going to deal with a particular issue. But obviously those aren't the files where we're seeing the parenting issues come up, and where we're seeing court involvement because of the parenting issues. What the issues are coming up on files where, parents are not on the same page about it, and they deal with things differently. And then that becomes a source of conflict more in their relationship. And then things build. So I guess
They're
what I would
always
say,
amicable. What are the, you know,
yeah,
it's hard to parent anyways. Throw in, you know, co-parents who maybe don't like each other anymore for whatever reason.
it's another area they get to fight with each other about, right?
Yes,
And blame
yeah,
each other.
yeah.
Like if they're having a bad behavior,
Mhm.
they never look at themselves too much. It's usually, it's his fault, her fault.
Mhm.
They did this,
And
they did that.
yes, yeah. And because it involves children, like both parents love these children
Yeah.
so much. So you can get quite passionate, you know, thinking that your way is the right way to go.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I think maybe a way to approach it, instead of going and calling your lawyer and being like, that asshole's letting him on the screens all the time, and now I have this disaster kid who's just freaking out at me all the time, I don't know how to manage it. Instead of doing that, instead of calling your lawyer, get online, start looking for a parenting course. So if the online like stock courses that I'm talking about for like toddler issues aren't working for your teenager, obviously, then go seek out someone, a parenting coach or teacher or psychologist or whatever does courses like Allison Reese in Victoria, because she'll have more, because it's never a quick fix. It's never a one and done. It's a restructuring. It's a slow, right? Like that's from everything.
Yeah,
it's long,
relearning
it's
how
long
to, yeah, yeah. And I think the benefit of those courses being online is, you know, similar to when two people are separating and they're trying to decide who's going to do their house appraisal. You know, you can suggest, these are the three that I would be happy to work with. You know, research them, let me know who you want to work with. I mean, parents can do the same thing. Like, look at these three courses.
Yeah, maybe we can agree to take one together, or separately, but together.
Separately, but
yeah,
taking the same course, but separately, so that you're on the same page. And so there isn't any, you know, kids, I think, are manipulative by nature. And so when they can sense that little bit of weakness, like, oh, you know, mom only lets me have the 30 minutes of screen time, but dad's house, you know, it's a free for all. I want to be at dad's house, you know, then we can sort of figure out strategies to sort of deal with that in a way that's not going to make it, you know, blow up and end up in court.
Yeah. And I think so there's yeah, maybe you could both take the same course but separately, or I mean even if your co-parent is not open to taking a parenting course, if you're feeling like things are getting out of control a little bit and you're not sure why, it's useful for you to do it yourself, right? To see if you can learn some new tools and skills for you to kind of keep the peace at your home. How do you deal with difficult behaviors in your home? Because it's not always the more free-for-all parent or the more strict parent necessarily who's going to have the bad behaviors. Sometimes it's the parent that the child feels safest with or the most comfortable. And that's not because there's anything wrong with the other parent. It's just that, you know, often moms tend to be primary parents because they birthed their child and cared for them. Not always, but, you know, often. And so they'll often, even though they might have lots of comfort and support and stability, they often will act out more with moms as a way of releasing their emotions. So then maybe some skills about how do we deal with that, that dynamic, you know, how do I manage those behaviors? And it's not because there's anything wrong going on. It's just they're going through a tough time.
Yes. And they know they can act badly with mom. She's still going to love you.
Well, they probably act out with it. They would say, you know, I'm just saying, like, they just get the more comfort there, right? It's not that, you know, it's just they feel more, I guess, again, it's just comfort, you know?
Yeah. They feel safe enough to release those.
Yeah. So anyhow, so the parenting courses, and there is the one plug I would like to make, I guess, is before we sign off here, is that Caught in the Middle program in Victoria that's offered through Family Services of Greater Victoria. It's designed for children and parents who are going through separation and divorce. And I say there is no handbook for you going through separation, divorce, and parenting your kids. And I guarantee you, even the most well-intentioned parents make stupid mistakes, and they do stuff that, like, seasoned professionals that were saying, you know, they came in and were like, well, I talked to my kid about this. It's like, oh my God, what? And it's not that they're bad parents, and it's not that they had an ill intent. It's just that they didn't know, because there's a lot you don't know if you're just going into a separation and divorce with kids, about how to talk to them about it, how to manage certain things, about how not to put your emotional burden on your children. And so this Caught in the Middle course is kind of like, there's a parenting after separation course, first of all, that's online. It's 3 hours. It's free. So start there and then go from there. And if you feel like it's necessary, where you might have a bit more of a conflict, in your separation relationship. And then you start with that caught in the middle course, right? Not necessary for everyone or all families, but it is very useful if there is some conflict between you and your co-parent, and you do see the child being a source or a vector for that conflict, an area where you tend to be, you know, getting long emails and emotional emails or sending them, etc. And then educate yourself about how to manage those things. And so those are the two kind of divorce and separation centered courses. There is counseling specifically for people going through that situation, but, you know, I would say start with a parenting course. There are skills and tools about how to be a modern parent today that are going to benefit you and your kids.
Definitely.
Okay, well, thanks so much for letting us go on about our parenting courses. Maybe we'll check back in a few months, Angela, once you've done a teenager's parenting course, and you can let us know if you've managed to nip that screen time in the bud or what. Okay, all right. So if you've enjoyed this video, please hit like, please hit subscribe, hit the little notification button, and we'll be continuing to post as regularly as possible, ideally once a week on Fridays around 10:30. Okay, take care.
Bye, everyone.